Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Human Protocol, the podcast about staying human while building the future. I am your host, Mykel Salomon. Technology is rewriting our world. This is the conversation about what we keep and what we change. We talk about AI, leadership, and humanity, not in theory, but in how they shape our everyday lives. Every week, we will talk about the intersection of technology, leadership, and purpose, and the values, meaning, and impact that are really shaping humanity as we know it. Today, I'm very excited. I'm joined by Renard Henry, the head of IT at Toyota Connected. Renard Henry is a technology executive, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, and thought leader at the intersection of IT and leadership. As an IT leader at Toyota Connected North America, he leads innovation initiatives that drive digital transformation and business impact. Beyond the boardroom, Renard also brings the discipline, humility, and resilience learned on the mats into his leadership philosophy, mentoring the next generation of IT professionals and also executives. He's also the co host of Black Belts and Boardrooms, a podcast about where martial arts principle meets corporate strategy, featuring conversations with leaders, athletes, and change makers. One more time, welcome, Renard. I'm very pleased and honored to have you with us on the show.
Yeah, same here. Thank you for having me, man. Been looking forward to this one. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Perfect, great. So we're gonna be talking about really how do you see, right, and how do we see the role of the IT leader of the future, basically, with everything happening today, with uh, especially with how AI is accelerating changes and disrupting many things around technology, businesses, and humanity overall. I would like to start with a few questions. So, if we remove the title, who is Renard at his core?
Man, that's a good question. For me, you remove the title. I am just a kid from New Orleans, Louisiana. Lived there all my life for about 25 years until Hurricane Katrina hit. And then I moved to Dallas. So you're talking about, it takes a village to raise a child. It took a village to raise me with my mom, my grandfather, uncle, etc. All raised me, and got a chance to see a lot in different venues being back home in New Orleans. But moved to Dallas in 2005 during Hurricane Katrina, and been here ever since. So I've had 25 years in IT and 20 years here in Dallas. So I'm just a person who loves the conversation, love getting to know people, and of course love Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It is a big part of my life that I enjoy. Outside of that, I have a 28-year-old son who followed in my footsteps in the tech. He's in tech right now, starting his career, which it was very humbling to see him decide to go into tech. So, when he told me, I shed a little tear around the corner because I was humbled and shocked that he wanted to go in there, but he is doing so well. So it also pushes me to continue to do great things in tech just to show him that he has a future in it, and see where that path will lay him. Besides that, I'll be getting married in a couple of weeks to my awesome fiance. She is
Congratulations.
definitely, thank you. She is definitely my best friend. Love her to death. Looking forward to getting married to her in a couple of weeks. But just overall, just love life. Understanding that life is short, but we got to stop procrastinating. For some reason, we have this illusion that we have so much time, and that we need to take those moments with family and friends and cherish that, because eventually, like all of us, our time will be up at some point. So it's best to enjoy it as much as possible and spend time with family and friends. So outside of my professional life, that is me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing with us. And I'm glad to see that your son is kind of following your steps. No pressure at all, right? Being a role model, it takes it means you kind of rethink a lot of things because you have that next generation of hopefully future leaders within the family. So that's great to hear. And when we think about Renard, the legacy role of IT that has always been keeping the lights on, and it still is in many ways, but we have seen IT transforming, right? From just keeping the lights on as to more as a strategic partners to the business that we serve. So can you tell us a little bit how that shift happened? At what time during your career you stopped only being focused on keeping the lights on and just more into working to be the strategic partners that your business partners needed, for example?
Yeah, so I think you hit on a key point that IT used to be the keep the lights on team. Over time, if people have noticed that more and more business need technology nowadays, that business cannot function without technology. If you're talking about a restaurant, if it's a POS system, if you're just talking about business in general, tech is needed in order for the business to keep running for now. There was a point, 20, 30 something years ago where, people use tech somewhat, but now a business cannot function with that. So the IT department or the IT team has become a strategic partner for every business. We're the team that people come to understand if this is the right technology that needs to come in for the business or how is it going to affect the business long term. So for me, of course, like many others, I started off as a IC, an individual contributor, when I started in my career. And it took me seeing other great leaders for me to want to go into management and then go into leadership, because I always say there's a difference between the two. So I always tell people, if you want to go into management or leadership, the seat is hot in a sense, because your success does not it's not on you anymore, it's on the team. So you want to have a great team around you, knowing that they can be leaders themselves and continue to do successful things for the business. So it's a thought you have to go through. Like, are you willing to lead a team? Is that team willing to accept you as their leader? Because it goes both ways. So during my career, when I worked at Lehigh Hanson, I had a great manager. His name's Kent Pillip. He passed years ago, but when I saw him and the way he leaded and the way he leaded us, that got me into wanting to do management. So over time, I had to understand what the difference was between management and leadership. The great thing about when you see great mentors, even if they don't know the mentors, you get to see the good and the bad. So I've seen great leaders and I've seen some terrible ones, but I always looked at it like I don't want to do what they do. You learn from even the bad ones, like, okay, I'm not going to do that when I get to that level. So understanding leadership and creating other leaders has been a life goal for me. Once I got into leadership, I was like, I want to see other great leaders. Because eventually my time, I'm going to retire, or whatever's going to happen. I want to continue that cycle of great leaders, either at the company I'm with now, or if they go to another company. I want to be part of that small part of their journey that goes along in their career. So being a leader, I think, takes a lot of passion. It's got to be more than just, we got to see what the numbers are going to be, but understanding strategically for the business. And that's the mindset change. When you're a manager, you're just worrying about the department for the most
Mhm.
part. What are we going to achieve as a department? When you become a leader, you become more business minded, more strategic. How are we going to see the business grow from a technology standpoint in the next 3 to 5 years? How are we going to do that? How's the budget going to look? How are we going to have these conversations with the executives when they decide, hey, we want to bring in AI? They're gonna
Mhm.
talk to the IT department, they're gonna talk to your infosec team to try to understand what's gonna make, the right choice for the business, but also how to mitigate risk when we bring this in. So, there's many differences in leadership and management, and don't get me wrong, I've seen some great managers, and I've seen some great leaders who I've got to take a lot from throughout my career. So I think you have to understand, if you're going to be at that level, if you're going to be an executive, if you're going to want to sit at that table and help make those decisions, you're going to have to be more business minded, more strategic. You're going to have to understand every part of the business. It's just not going to be the IT department. That's the only thing I understand. That's the only thing I know. It's got to be, I need to understand what the business goal is. What's our mission? What's our vision? It's talking to your CEO, it's talking to the other executives. Sometimes it's even talking to the other departments to understand the strategy of the business and how, from a technology standpoint, we can contribute to that. So, yeah, to keep the lights on, that's far from where any IT department is anymore. I remember those times. I remember, you keep the lights on, you're making sure the internet runs, etc. And don't get me wrong, that still happens. That's your
Hmm.
day-to-day work that you're making sure. You're making sure internet works, you're making sure the computers work, servers, etc. Yeah, that's your day-to-day. But when you're sitting at a strategic standpoint and a strategic vision, that's a totally different vision. You have the greatest team in the world making sure the day to day runs. It's your job to make sure that you're part of that vision, you're part of that strategic partnership with the business to keep the business flowing, keep the business growing, and keep the business moving forward. One of the biggest things I always tell people, and someone taught me this, the two things you need to know when you get into leadership and you get to the executive level, and is to increase growth and mitigate risk. If you can master those two things, you can become a great leader and a great executive.
Absolutely. You touched into so many good points, and for people that are going to be watching this, that I think is extremely important. There's nothing wrong between being an IC, which is an individual contributor, or being in leadership, right? There are people that are very good at what they do, very technical, right? And we need those people, and we will continue to need these people.
Mhm.
But when you're planning to get into the leadership side of things, like a manager and then directors, of course, the whole thing changes. It's not about you doing the work anymore. It's about you getting the best out of the people reporting to you to achieve those goals that the business need us to achieve, right? It's trying to make people work together in a way that is efficient and everybody going into that same direction. It's make things a little bit more complicated because it's not only about what you deliver, but it's about what your team of people, of human beings need to deliver together as a whole, right? Which we know it makes things a little bit more complicated. But if you are passionate about what you do as a leader, then you should be able to get the best out of your people to deliver what you need to. And that comes with understanding what people goals are. And as you said, building the next generation of leaders. That's for me, it's the most special part of being on leadership is having the opportunity to develop people in a way that you see them grow to the best version of themselves, even if they are not going to become leaders, but they can become better human beings and better individual contributors. So I think that's an opportunity that every single leader should really appreciate, having that opportunity to serve our people and to develop the best of in them.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the thing about it, you don't have to be an executive in order to be a leader. You could be an IC and be a leader. Like you said, we need great ICs, we need great managers, we need great executives, etc. Those are the people who eventually are on boards, who are helping other companies, like you say, bringing the next person up. Is part of that job description that you don't see for the most part. It's not on your job description, but creating other leaders is something that you want to do and that you enjoy doing. Like, I love my job. I enjoy it. I get up every single day, which is rare for a lot of people. I get up every day and I'm happy to go to work because I get to work with some of the best people in the world. I get to work with my team and I get to see someone who didn't start off doing programming and now all of a sudden is a programming genius. And it's because I had to push them a little bit because I
Mhm.
saw greatness in them.
Right?
And that's what I love. You have to be a coach in a sense. You're not only, like I say, you're doing the risk and the growth, etc. You become a coach. You was like,
Yes.
man, I see greatness in you. And I know you don't see it in yourself yet, but I see it. So I'm gonna push you a little bit. It's gonna get uncomfortable for you.
Hmm.
But then all of a sudden you see it and they get it. And they'd be like, man, compared to where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm like, yeah, you're not the same person. I
Yeah.
said the same thing for myself.
And that's usually what happens when you take people out of their comfort zones.
Mhm.
And at the beginning, people, human beings, we are against changes, right? We don't accept changes. A lot of people don't accept changes naturally. And so when you show people that there is a way of doing things, and at the beginning they may not see it, but then medium long term they start noticing, hey, this was the right thing. That's a beautiful thing to witness. And like you said, we become coaches, we become psychologists, because it is a lot of also talking about our people and on one-on-ones, on having people to grow and helping them to go through sometimes personal challenges that comes also with the job of being leader. So there's a lot of things that we do as leaders. It's a beautiful thing when you witness people growing, and people growing to a place that they may not believe or they may not want to get there, and then they say, okay, you were right, look where I am now, right? So perfect, Renard. So let's talk about AI. It's the topic that we all talk every day. And one of the main pillars and one of the reasons why this podcast exists, it's because I saw an opportunity to bring this topic in a way that we may not see it every day, which is basically understanding from people like you, how do you see AI impacting or reshaping the roles of the future? And especially during this episode, we are discussing the IT leader of the future. So, how do you see, with all things happening around AI today and that we will continue to see in the next 2 years, how do you see the role of the IT leader, of the CIO, in a way that embraces AI, and with all the AI transformation happening in the next 2 years, where are we heading? Where the CIO of the future will be in 2 years from now?
That's a great question, and let me take a step back from AI before I talk about that. AI was something, what, maybe a couple of years ago people talked about, but it really wasn't there. Now you have more businesses being created around AI. Everyone is talking. If they're not talking about it, they're working on it right now. Every single company. If you go to Slack, etc., they have their own AI component, etc. So all these businesses are looking towards the future in AI because it's not going anywhere. So it comes down to something simple. Either you embrace AI or you're going to get passed over. That's what's going to happen to your executive leader, and that's not just CIO, that's every part of executive leadership. AI right now is going to take care of some low-hanging fruit for you right now. That's its job right now. uh, it's taking everything that you give it far as data and then coming up with answers for you for the most part. So it will take some repetitive tasks, it will take the low-hanging fruit, but to me, in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see new jobs come around because of that. New titles are going to happen. AI governance is going to be big in the next 2 years. AI governance is going to be severe because you're going to need someone in order to put guardrails around AI, especially if you're going to bring it into a corporate business or any business, because you need to have guardrails because you need to make sure all of a sudden that your data is not going out into the public, and that you're having guardrails around it, making sure that it only sees what you need it to see, and it's only going to input out information to certain levels in that team or in that company that they only need visibility. If you think about it, uh, if you're working in HR, you don't need access to finance. You don't need access to the financial, and vice versa. Finance doesn't need access to all the HR information. Same thing for IT. I don't need information for the financial. So if I'm going to use AI and ask it to do a query for me, it shouldn't come up with financial information for people who work at the company. It shouldn't. So that's where your guardrails come from. So I think what's going to happen is, for the most part, from an executive level, the CIO, the CTO, honestly, you should be trying to get a hold of AI as much as possible. You should be growing with AI while AI is growing and evolving. You need to be doing the same exact thing. You need to take a hold of it and say, I need to learn every bit as I can to understand it. So now, when you start having those meetings again with the executive team and you start sitting in the boardroom, now you can start talking about AI from a strategic standpoint. Because I know for a fact every single Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, whatever that company is already sitting in the rooms talking about AI and how they're going to be able to use it. So you need to grab a hold of that as much as possible. Because once again, if you don't, someone else is going to take your seat 100%. They're going to be like, hey, you're not trying to grasp it. We will bring somebody else in who's already familiar with it. What's going to happen, and I've talked about this previously, another thing that's going to happen is higher level jobs become available because all the low hanging fruit are taken. So that means now when you go to college, it's going to be more around AI than anything else. When you're going to college, you're getting your degrees. You're not going to be like, okay, we're going to show you the basics and then you work your way up. We're already going to have to be at that level already when we go into college and when we graduate in order to be able to get these jobs, because the normal thing that we went to college for, say the past 10, 15, even 20 years, is not going to technically exist for you to do anymore. AI is going to take care of that. So once again, it's being prepared, understanding what's going to be the next, like you say, 2 years, the next three, the next 10. We have quantum computing easily about to come around the corner. We have to be prepared for that. I made an analogy that if you ever watch Star Trek is heavily AI, heavily computerized. That's the level eventually we will get to. Not saying that Star Trek is reality, because it's not, but
Right.
the techniques of AI and what technology does in the future is what we are evolving to. The job is to make sure that we have AI governance, that someone is always making sure that we are moving in the right direction for the business, and also being a strategic partner around AI for the business as well. So you're going to have a two-step protocol, but outside of just business, that means that everyone who's going to college is going to be around AI in some aspect. It has to be, because AI isn't going anywhere. This is not a fad. This isn't something that's going to disappear anytime soon. We're already talking about autonomous vehicles already. People are already making them. People are already building them. So
Robots, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
robots are already being done already. So it's just understanding of how we are as humans and how we advance so fast that it's going to move pretty fast. If you think about, of course, I grew up in the 90s. So I'm saying my age a little bit of how old I am, but from the 90s until now, technology moved so fast. We went
Yes.
from dial up to broadband to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how the internet is now, fiber, etc. That is actually a pretty fast transformation
It is.
compared to how we were in the 90s and how we are now. Most vehicles that we have, you're just talking about cars, are mostly computerized technologies in the vehicle. And that wasn't the case if you're talking about from the 90s, but you see how fast it moved. I
Yes.
remember when vehicles did not have backup cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Now every vehicle that is built has a backup camera, has a camera that sees the overall view of the vehicle, what's on the side of it, what's in front of it, etc. And we were at a point that it didn't do that at all. So understanding that technology moves pretty fast, we are people who want to see advancements in things. And it's just not AI, it's just, if you want to go to planes, etc. So I see in the next 2 years, like I said, the CIO, the CTO roles, the executive roles are going to change because it's going to be more focused on how AI is going to help the business. How are we going to be faster? How are we going to be more agile? That's what AI will bring. It will continue to be a helper for us, but it will give us access and openings to do more higher level jobs going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, you touch into many good points, and I share with you the acceleration of AI, and we have seen, disruptive technologies and landmark through our history with the industrial revolution, with the digital revolution in the 80s, then broadbands, email. Every time a new technology such as this and AI, for example, comes, they are all going to be always disruptive by nature. But what I'm seeing with AI is the acceleration, the speed into how things are evolving. It's so fast that I don't think I've seen this in the past. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was telling, I feel like with AI, with everything happening a day by day basis, it feels like a car going on a cliff without any brakes working right now, right? Because it's so fast. Every day we have a new a new thing coming out, right? We are not talking about how to build infrastructure here in the US, right? Because every time, and people don't think about what happens in the back end, every time you're using a model, it's energy that is consuming, and it's a lot of energy. And the US is not ready to evolve with the grid that we have because it will require a lot more than what we can produce as far as energy. But back to the CIO and the CTO of the future, what I'm seeing this heading is the challenges that people in leadership roles at that executive level will have on balancing the efficiency gains into the humanity of our people. And how are we going to be able to kind of put in a balance? What is it what we need a human still doing the job versus what is it that AI will take over? Because it cannot be just replacing by replacing, because at the end of the day, we're still humans and we still need our people. But to balance that against business goals and advanced efficiency gains is something that I keep thinking because what is it that it will be enough? How much efficiency gain will be enough for us to be satisfied? Because the more we like the speed of the efficiency that we are gaining with this, the more we want. The more we are running processes and automating processes, oh, we can do this very fast than, maybe what it was taking a week before. So, and the more we enjoy that, the more we want to bring that to our daily operations and our businesses. So, so when I think about that as well, I think about how is it that we as leaders are we going to balance what is it that it's going to be the need for humans versus really automations or AI or machines really doing the job. And that's what becomes the reinvention part of we human beings. We really need to reinvent ourselves because AI is here, as you were saying, and it didn't start today. This has been years in the making. It's just accelerating this year, especially so fast. But we really need to reinvent ourselves. And you talk about a very good point that I would like us to continue to go down that path. For people going to college today that may be starting something that a job that may not be needed in the future due to AI. I'm curious to see what do you think are those skills that no matter what you are studying today, you need to start thinking about. Of course, embracing AI for you to reinvent yourself in the future. And it doesn't matter if you are studying, if you get out of college, you can be, a professional and working today. But we all need to reinvent ourselves. What are those skills that you think are needed today and tomorrow due to AI?
I think one of the main things, and look at AI, someone has to program in order to create AI. But now we're getting into the revolution of low code, no code. So I'm worried about programmers for the most part. Right now, AI is not AI can check certain things right now when it comes to programming, but it can't sit there and develop and whole code, whole scripts, etc. So that right now, that's one of the main things I'm worried about when it comes to technology, that coding in some aspect is gonna not necessarily go away, but it's going to become a lot easier for code. I remember when you used to have to really know how to code, if that was SQL, Oracle. Now you have Python, etc. But now we're getting into this thing. If you talk about N8N, the low
Mm-hmm.
code, no code programming now. That is the big thing. They're trying to make coding easier for anyone in order to use, in order to get some repetitive tasks done, connect other things. So that is where the area I am worried about. But like you said, people need to evolve. We're going to have to evolve from that because we're going to have to change and transform once we say, okay, AI is taking this, then what's next?
Mm-hmm.
That's where everybody should be looking. If they went to college in order, now they're doing app dev, etc. What's next after this? How can I still make myself valuable for business, even though AI has taken this on? And I have seen very, very resilient people. Humans in general are resilient. for the most part. If something has been taken away, they will figure out another way in order to keep themselves valuable, keep being able to feed their families, etc., whatever that may be. But from a college standpoint, that's what I see. I don't see AI all of a sudden taking a therapist's job. I don't see that. I think we love human interaction. I need to go to therapy. I want to have another human being sitting there and having a conversation.
Even though there's a lot of people already using ChatGPT and other as their therapist.
Yeah, I think that's where you get into people don't understand like ChatGPT isn't a therapist for you.
Exactly.
It's just searching through the internet in order to give you an answer. It's not really understanding you as a person. If you have one of the and we're talking about ChatGPT, if you have one of the paid subscriptions, it's just remembering every single thing that you fed it. That's what it's doing. So it needs information. You couldn't just go on there day one and say, "Hey, my name is this. Tell me what you know about me." The first thing it's going to do is go search the internet
Right.
and see what it can pull. It does not know you. It doesn't know your background, doesn't know your history, doesn't know your family history, etc. In order to understand you, that's you feeding it information in order for it to start understanding, connecting dots in order to start giving you answers. So, yeah, I don't think you should use AI as your therapist.
I wouldn't recommend it
Yeah,
either.
I wouldn't
No.
recommend that. I wouldn't recommend it. That's not going to give you the answers that you want. If you're just looking for a cheap solution, go talk to one of your friends. It's free. You
It's
don't you
it's
don't need that.
It's like people that uses Google search, for example, to see if the results of a blood test it's cancer or something else. I mean,
Yeah,
people that you
yeah.
don't do that. The same thing as you say with ChatGPT, you don't use ChatGPT for that type of thing, for example, or any of those models, right? You continue to go to a therapist for sure. Yeah.
You do. Same thing if we want to talk about the medical field. There's certain things that AI already helps out in the medical field when it comes to certain surgeries, etc. The techniques they're using, we've come a long way when it comes to just medicine and operations, etc. I forgot where I read there's hospitals that use nothing but AI far as getting medicine to certain rooms, etc. But that's low hanging fruit.
Right.
That's the low hanging fruit that we talk about. But I don't see AI taking over a doctor's job. When you want to go see the doctor, etc. I don't think that. I think you still need that human interaction. So I think people need to sit and really understand, even if you're not in tech, understand where AI makes sense and where AI doesn't. Like you said, you shouldn't be using ChatGPT as your therapist. All it is giving you answers of information that you already fed it. That's not a real conscious answer to the question that you're answering. That's a bunch of information that you fed it over time, and it's just giving you an answer looking at the history that you gave it, but that doesn't mean that's the right answer for you.
Yep, absolutely. I can agree more. We all need to take these all like any new technology, right? Just embrace them for what they are, not for what we want them to be. Because we as human beings, sometimes we tend to turn everything into what we want that to be. And it happens from human beings to human beings as well. No, you have to embrace it for what the technology is, understanding its limitations and where the technology is today, for sure. Yeah, very interesting, Renard. Let's talk a little bit about following the same topic of skills needed for the future, how we all need to reinvent ourselves when you look at IT or technology function as a whole right now and the shift that it's needed to in order to embrace AI, what would be your recommendation for those companies really looking to get into AI, trying to see how AI can help their businesses, right? What would be one piece of advice for those companies on how to approach from the leadership side of things?
For me, and this is something I've talked about previously, we got to understand what's your reason you want to bring AI in. What are you trying to achieve in the short term and long term with AI bringing it to the company? Because the thing you worry about is that everybody loves the brand new toy. Everybody loves the brand new toy. There's so many AI agents now. There's so many going on. Everybody just wants to bring everything in. But then the question goes, it's a simple question. What are we trying to achieve if we bring it in? That's something that the business needs to know. Understanding that if they want to bring in AI in, and that needs to be the main question anyone needs to ask. What are we trying to achieve if we bring this into the business? What are we trying to do with it? If not, then you're just opening yourself up to a lot of issues in the long term. If you don't have, once again, if you're not talking to, your CIO, your CISO, and having those conversations from just not a strategy standpoint from where IT is going to be, but also where we're going to be security and governance from it. So the business, it's our job as your CIO, CTO, CISO is to make sure the business understand what's going to be the risk if we bring all this in, and what are we going to benefit from it. But the business itself needs to say, hey, I want to bring in AI, just a certain application, whatever that's going to be, and what do we need to do from a technology standpoint in order to make sure that our information, our data is secure. And also the next question from a tech standpoint, okay, you're asking me this, what are we trying to achieve if we bring this in?
Right. What's
What are
the
we,
problem you're trying to solve? That should
yes.
be our starting point always, not the tool, not the application, but the problem to solve.
Correct, correct. Because there's so many tools out there. We just can't sit there and say, okay, I'm gonna bring all these in. There you go. We'll figure it out from there. What are we trying to achieve by bringing this in? And then IT and the technology teams can start delving into that. Like, okay, you gave me this. I found out the information I need. Now I can go see what's going to meet this question that you're asking, what's going to meet this mission that we're trying to achieve with it, and go from there. But if your answer is, well, everyone else is doing it, that's not the right answer for your business. Everybody else is doing AI, so we should too. But what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve for that, for the short term and the long term? Because once we bring it in, like anything else, it's going to be hard to remove.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've seen many companies also, I've seen companies going to more conservative approach. Try it first, then we'll see. Others embracing without doing their due diligence, especially on data governance and privacy. That I think it's a very hot topic nowadays because many of these AI, the data may be living in the cloud, and for organizations you don't want that to happen. So I think it's extremely important tech leaders pay a lot of attention of data governance and privacy moving forward because it's not about just embracing AI. We need to think about what's happening with the data, which for organizations it's kind of the most valuable asset, your IP, your data, all those type of things that are extremely important.
It's it's the same question we had. We went from having everything in house for our servers, and then we went to SaaS after that.
Mhm.
It's the same exact question, the same thing from, like you said, your own server farm at your business, and then we went to the cloud. And I always put quotations up because all it is another server farm sitting somewhere else. It's just not sitting in your office. But it's the same questions that happen in these different steps of evolution when it came to tech. Now most companies are trying to be a SaaS shop. They want their offices to be more like a WeWork. So if the building blows up, we keep still operating.
Right.
That's the change. Even if you're just talking about your IT department, IT departments used to be these gigantic teams, 60, 70 people on a team. Now most IT teams are agile. They're very small. People do multiple jobs in order to get things done. So the same evolution when we come to AI is going to be the same thing. And the question for each and every one of those evolutions has been, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to do for the business? Does this make sense?
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. What is the problem? And that's where the conversation starts. The problem to solve always. In that same line of thinking, what would be a piece of advice that you would give today to individuals, human beings that are just going on with their lives? Some of them, a lot of people that I know, And I know there's a lot of people out there that they are not even using any AI today. And I see that as a concern because it's as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, there are going to be people using AI that probably are going to be the one keeping their jobs against those that are not using AI or don't even know how to use it. What would be a piece of advice to those listening and watching us today and in the future about embracing AI?
I think you just said the what I would say to anybody. You need to embrace. You need to have an open mind when it comes to any new technology, anything. You need to be open minded to. You need to understand that the landscape is changing. What worked 10 years ago doesn't work now. What worked 20 years ago didn't work 10 years ago. So you need to understand that. Far as technology is concerned, the landscape changes very fast, and you need to get on board or you will get passed up, or you need to make the decision, I'm going to do something else, because there's always going to be someone who doesn't like change. It's uncomfortable for 'em, and I get it. I think we're all uncomfortable in some type of way. Even if it's outside of tech, we get a little uncomfortable, but it's understanding that in order for me, as a person who wants to keep growing in technology, wants to continue to get better, I need to be understanding the latest and greatest stuff that comes out. I need to understand what the future looks like. I need to do my due diligence in order to understand what's going to happen with not just AI when we get to quantum computing, etc. What's the landscape of technology in general going to look like, so I can be prepared to start having those conversations early with any business? Because I tell anybody, I said, it's no longer you being focused just on the department. You need to be business minded going forward. And it doesn't matter if you're an individual contributor or if you're an executive. I tell anybody on my team, and when it comes to even the ICs that I have, I say, you got to understand, when something goes wrong, it doesn't just affect an individual, it affects the entire business. So if,
Cascades all the
yeah,
way
it
up and
cascades
down.
up
Yeah.
and down. So if the CEO has an issue, it doesn't just affect him, it affects the
Yeah.
entire business, because he can't do his job because something is not working for him. So it's the same mindset we have to have just in general when AI and any new technology comes along. It's like, okay, I need to get ahead of this, because someone I know is going to ask me about how is this going to be able to be used for our business to make us faster, stronger, and be ahead of the curve even before it starts settling down. So that's what I would tell anybody. It's be prepared for the next evolution in tech, because what we're doing now is going to be totally different than the way we do in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, etc. The previous jobs are going to be start becoming a history lesson after a while of jobs that no longer exist anymore. We've seen that our entire lives, that certain jobs that were happening, let's say in the 1980s, some of them don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing's gonna
Absolutely.
happen. Yeah, same thing's gonna happen. So be prepared. That's what I would tell anybody. Be prepared. Always be ready.
Yep. It's imperative for all of us to start using AI, to use AI, to continue to embrace AI. How we're going to keep ourselves as being valuable to the business in the future, it will demand you using AI
Yeah.
because everybody else will be using it and you will need to be at that same level of operational efficiency if you want to keep being consistent and being valuable to the business. So it is, yes, it is an imperative that we all, if we want to keep ourselves valuable, AI will be part of that. Absolutely. A piece of advice, Renard, for those startups or even the big tech company developing AI today, what would you tell OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, or even startups working in AI? What would be a piece of advice to them in a way that they still think about human beings in the process of designing and developing and implementing these AI solutions in the future?
I would definitely say make sure that the human part of any business, it's still moving forward with the company. We talked about earlier that certain jobs, certain tasks will be taken from AI, but Another part of you running a company is to make sure that the people are getting elevated as well. They're moving along with the company while the company definitely changes for the most part. It's the if you think about, because of AI, it's a human who created AI. At the end of the day, AI didn't just create AI. It's a humans who decided, hey, we wanted to achieve something different. Quantum computing that is coming, humans created that. So need to understand that the human part is still going to be part of technology no matter what. We're bringing AI in to make us more efficient, to make us faster, to actually, in a sense, make us a little bit smarter. In a sense, to get us to start opening our minds to other avenues that technology can help us with. So, for any business, regardless if it's a Fortune 500 or startup, remember that the human part is a big part of the business. It's not just the technology, even though yes, every business cannot function without technology. The human part is the biggest part that we need to make sure that we keep as humans evolving and growing with the business, knowing that things are going to change on a regular basis.
Great points. Great points. Can't agree more. And what would be one piece of advice to policymakers and governments when it comes to safeguards on data privacy, for example, and ethical issues that we are starting to see with the acceleration of
I think from an AI, you honestly, you just stated AI governance is a huge thing that people need to make sure. I think you see a lot of businesses say, "Man, I want the new toy. We're going to bring it in," but they forget about, okay, we got to put guardrails on this thing. What information it does have access to? If we're talking about anything in healthcare, HIPAA is big, and we have to make sure data is secure. So if you're bringing it in, your infosec team, your CISO, et cetera, is a big part of making sure that data is not being leaked out to the public, to other companies, et cetera. So once again, if you're a startup or if you're a Fortune 500 company, your data is one of the most important things in the world that you do not want leaked out. So you need to make sure that your CISO AI governance is tight. The ship has to be ready to go when you decide, okay, we're going to put this out. We've had those conversations with our CIO or CISO, the infosec team, to make sure that we're secure. So when we hit the button and that data goes into AI, we are protected as a whole for the business. That's one of the most important things. I think if you just bring AI in and you're not thinking about AI governance, you are in a world of trouble once all that information, like, which we have already seen. We've seen many companies using chat GPT and putting their information in, and all of a sudden what happened? It got leaked out to the public. You need those guardrails, have to be so important. And that's not just for the day. That's gonna be going years on in, going forward, just how AI is gonna evolve. AI governance is one of the major things. If you look at it, AI governance technically isn't a job title yet, but in the next 2 to 3 years, it will be. People will go to school just to get a degree around AI governance.
I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of that. And I'm already starting seeing some movement on the government, not only here in the US, but also Europe, China, talking about a global standards
Mhm.
for AI privacy. So I'm happy to see that that's a broader concern, and it should be, because sometimes company needs to follow the laws, and but if the laws does not exist, then it's a no man's land in a way. So that's where governments are kind of spending more and more time trying to come and see if they can come up with some global standards, because I think data privacy and governance, it's going to continue to be a very important topic for all of us. Last but not least, Renard, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self, or that future and next generations coming behind us, when they're looking at what's happening today and what will happen in the future? What would that be?
Man, I've thought about this for a while, and I think I've told people, and this is outside of technology. What I wish I knew when I started was the power of connections. building relationships over time in your professional career. I really wish I knew that. I'll be honest, I just started that a couple of years ago about really building professional connections. And I've seen the return on investment, and not just saying this professional thing. You actually get some great friends in your professional network who actually become true friends for you. And it was something I wish I knew when I started. When you just get out of college and you just start, you be like, man, I just got to work hard. Eventually I'll start building those connections. And I wonder if I would have built them starting off in my career, how fast my career would have moved a little bit differently. And I would tell anybody, if you're already seasoned already, and if you're just starting, build those connections, because I've learned through those connections that people watch you throughout your career. They might not say anything, they might not, say, but they're watching you, and all of a sudden you start getting a little tap on your shoulder from somebody you interacted with 10 to 15 years ago, and they'll tell you, "Man, I've been watching your career. I might have an opportunity for you because I've seen how you grew over your career." So that is one thing I will tell anybody. The power of connections is a great thing in your professional and in your personal life. So make sure you start building those day one in your career, because you never know over time who has been watching your career and may all of a sudden bring that opportunity that you've been waiting for.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that. That's such a valuable advice. And it remains kind of current in a way because connections are really a lot of what will happen to you. It depends on the connections that you make. Because life is not perfect, opportunities are not perfect, and sometimes it's about the people that you know that will be your supporters and will help you to move forward. So I cannot agree with you more that that will continue to be um, kind of a very valuable advice as we move forward into the future with AI. So, with that being said, Renard, really thank you for your time, your insights, and for laying your humanity here with us on the show. This has been a very extremely and great conversations, and I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to seeing more and more episodes of your podcast. So thank you for having me.
Great, great. Thank you. And for those of you that are watching, if this sparked something on you, the episode, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. This is the Human Protocol. We're gonna have an episode every week. So remember, someone has to write the human stories in times of AI, and this is what this show and what this podcast is about. So thank you all for your time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.